Welcome, Internet, to the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the video game world. This week, we're going to be talking about PlayStation's state of play, rumors abound of what games are coming out. We're going to be talking about Forspoken getting delayed, God of War getting a movie, and what games we think should be movies. And all that in this week's episode. I am your host, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, you can find us wherever you get your podcast by searching for Pixel Play Podcast or on YouTube, Pixel Play Podcast, Pixel Play, all one word. And if you guys want to be on our socials, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and now on TikTok. Just search for Pixel Play Cast. With that being said, Adam, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I really should have played more Horizon this week. This is like see, here's the problem, right? My Final Fantasy IV randomizer just started a tournament, which means I actually have to try for a couple weeks. I'm still gonna lose, but it means also that probably 10 to 15 hours of Horizon was lost this entire week, and I'm very upset about that.
Honestly, I have been trying to sneak every moment I can to play Horizon, and it's so hard being a responsible adult and parent and like family commitments and all that, and then sneaking in Horizon. I feel like I have to choose, and I don't know which one I want to choose. It's pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's the beauty of being alone in this room that, you know, I'm just like, I'm gonna do this, and no, who's gonna stop me? But yeah, I've still got a lot of progress to make. Without spoiling anything, there's like a point where you got to do one of three, like you got to do 3 locations, and I've done 1 of 3 so far.
Yeah, I think I just got to that point where they're starting to tell me about that, and I just got to the point where they're like, "Hey, you can now go into the Forbidden West." I'm like, "But I still have stuff to do back there." No, I'm gonna go back.
That's exactly why I've only done 1 of 3. Because right now
so
I'm literally like 200 of the in-game's like distance from the area that I'm supposed to be at for the second one, but I'm literally going around it to do all the other side quests I've unlocked because I'm like, look, I'll get to you eventually.
And it's just funny because you've got like in-game characters and like, oh, this is pretty powerful. I'm like, that's a level 10. I'm level 30. Watch out.
Yeah, the main quest I'm trying to get to eventually is level 22. I'm 30 already, so
just steamrolling through.
I'm kind of just walking around being like, I'll get there.
Yeah.
You're not going to live long, whatever it is, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I feel like the combat just clicked in for me today. Like, I was finding it pretty hard. Like, I'm still playing it on normal difficulty. I know you're playing on... Are you playing easy or story mode?
I'm playing story mode because I really just...
Yeah.
I'm more just about, like, going around and picking stuff off. I don't really care too much about the challenge of it, honestly.
See, I like the challenge. Like, I like the vulnerability. Like, kind of feel like a cave person in terms of, like, dinosaurs are an actual real threat. But like I was finding the combat kind of difficult in terms of like you have to hit certain things at certain times and getting those shots in where you need them, when you need them. Like that was pretty hard, but I'm finding it starting to click with me. So
yeah, I mean for the most part, I mean we mentioned before on the show too that like my biggest thing with Horizon is always like, oh, you're supposed to play it by using all these specific items in these situations. Where I'm like, okay, but then you're forcing me to play the way that the game is designed to, which is not nearly as fun in an open world game when you just want to do it the way that you want to. So. Story mode at least allows me to choose whatever I want. If I want to use a tripcaster, I'll use a tripcaster. If I want to just shoot 50 arrows into something, I will shoot 50 arrows into something. It will die.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I like that challenge, but it's also reaffirming for me that Elden Ring is not going to be my game.
Nope. I'm still waiting for Demon Souls remake to get put free on PlayStation Plus just so I can play it for an hour and then go, nope, I still suck at these games and turn it off for the rest of eternity.
Yep, I'm waiting for Returnal to hit that $30 price point. And
that is a game too.
That's my jumping in window with $30 for Returnal. When that hits, I'll jump in and play it.
I mean, now having the Series X though, now it's like, okay, even if it was dropping to like under $30, it'd be like, well, I still do have to finish Horizon. Kenna's still in my backlog. Cyberpunk's now in my backlog. I still have... Oh my god, what else? Oh yeah, I got Mortal Kombat 11, the Ultimate Edition, because it was on for less than 20. So like, I've got like at least 4 things already, and I'm not even counting the Series X with Forza and anything else that's sitting on there, like you've mentioned earlier with Death's Door. Like,
oh yeah, you gotta play Death's
Door. Man. I'm almost happy that we have no like major game announcements anytime soon, because it's like, good. I don't want anything else to screw up the backlog. Like, if Lost Judgment comes out for like less than $30 anytime soon, I'm gonna look at that now and be like, no. Oh yeah, Yakuza Like a Dragon's also in that backlog. Oh my god. It's never gonna end.
I think you have to quit your job and just start playing video games.
I mean,
It's
have
clearly
you?
getting in the way.
If you've seen the price of gas, I can't even. I should be taking on 2 jobs at this point.
Adam, but you don't get it. If you quit your job, then you don't need the gas to go to work. You're saving money at that point.
But at some point, I need the gas to go get more video games.
You've got the Series X now. You don't need to. It's at your doorstep.
So now the guy who is all but physical copy says no.
You can have whatever you want. I like my physical games. I never once said that people who don't go physical like are making a bad choice.
No.
Just saying,
I've seen your burner Twitter account. You just talk endlessly for like, oh, those stupid digi fools. How dare they? Everything's gonna crash. The internet's gonna die, and they're all gonna be like, "What am I gonna do with no games?"
Yeah, that
I'm gonna be sitting here in my
stockpile. You guys are gonna lose all your digital
stockpile.
collections, and I'm gonna have all my physical collections. I'm not worried about any EMP. Send it at me.
I mean, the EMP would still make it so that you can't turn your electronics on, but
once I fix that, I still have the collection. I don't have to worry about the server.
I was just talking about the
just
internet going down. You're sitting here being like, we're going to just blast all of electronics to Kingdom Come. That's when you break out the old Game Boy and be like, I still got my batteries.
Yeah, the Game Boy would be the only thing that would survive that, so.
Yeah, I better start working on it, trying to find an old school Game Boy Color. I might be needing one of those again soon.
Yeah, for sure. So, quickly, did you end up going with the Series S or the Series X?
I wanted to go with the S so badly because I didn't want to pay as much, but the S was so goddamn ugly that I didn't have a choice. So when the X became available, I'm like, well, I guess I'm getting the X now.
So, clearly, like we've said, we're both PlayStation fanboys on this. How does the Series X, now that you've had some time to play with it, give us your quick, initial, experience.
I mean, I haven't done too much. It's literally just been Forza for the most part, is because it's only been like a casual game. Because again, Horizon, but like controller, if I hold the two, honestly, I don't know if I can say which one I like more. Just the DualShock 5 has the haptics, which kind of puts it over the edge a little bit.
Haptics are the future.
I haven't messed with the UI enough to really know whether I prefer Sony or Xbox over them yet. So that one's hard to tell. I mean, personally, I don't like the visual look of the home screen on the Xbox as much as the PS5, but that's a bells and whistles thing. If I actually really dig into the UI, maybe I'll figure it out later. I mean, it's really, we've said it before on the show, if you're getting the Xbox, Game Pass is its selling feature, so even any complaint that I make about my experience with the console today, tomorrow, however long in the future, it's not going to matter. Because unless Spartacus comes out and absolutely blows it away, it's not going to make a difference. Game Pass is going to kind of solve that problem. So I don't have any problems with the Xbox yet, but even if I do, it won't matter because for less than $20 a month, I get to play pretty much any game I want that comes on that damn system. So.
And performance-wise, do you notice a difference between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5?
Well, I mean, I don't have any game to compare it with. If I had something to compare it to, I'm sure if there's something on Game Pass that I also own on PlayStation, so maybe one of these days I'll take a grab at it, but I don't know, like, from playing Forza, whether I'm playing in resolution or performance, because I've tried both, again, it's what you expect. Like, it's prettier in 30 frames, but it's also nice and smooth in 60 frames, so I haven't got to that point where I haven't seen the differences yet, but I mean, I'm also not the Digital Foundry guy that sits there and looks at frame rate, frame by frame, and looks at pixel counts. That's a little bit out of my range. I'm more just like, does it run good or does it run like shit? Because that's the Elden Ring problem. Another reason why we probably won't play that game. And yes, that's the real reason why we're not playing on Elden Ring, because it's really bad on or on PC. That's the reason.
Yeah, that's it. It's not because we aren't good and have no time to get good.
No, we're mostly just not good. Even I don't think with time I could get good at those games.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that experience of just going through and like just grinding away. And I know the whole argument, like, don't come at me like Souls fans of like, oh, you just have to learn the game and the mechanics, and like I'm sure it's totally fair. I just don't have the time to like, figure out that mechanic.
Well, the thing too, right, is like not everybody is going to have the capacity to stay and learn. Cuz like going back to the randomizer, since I've been practicing a bunch, I know that there's a ceiling that I'm hitting where like unless I really hunker down and like learn to do very minor stuff that's going to make my game better, there comes a point where you're going, okay, do I either play this to be the best at it, or do I play this to enjoy myself? And eventually, those two have a point where they have to go in different directions. And unfortunately, there comes a point where if I really want to get good at something, I'm going to have to devote either way more attention to it or really, really study it. And I hate studying because I'm not in school anymore and I don't want to be in school anymore. So, no.
Hooray for mediocrity.
Yeah, I'm good at being. I'm like the old golfer like analogy where it's like, look, you never aspire to be great at golf. You're just hoping that one day you go on the course and you're less than shitty.
Yeah,
That's my goal when I play a lot of games. Look, as long as I'm not bad, I'm happy.
Speaking of people being happy, PlayStation, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on around PlayStation right now. So Sony announced today, thanks for the good timing, Sony, that State of Play is going to be returning pretty much at the time of you're listening to this, or, after you're listening to this, depending on when you're listening to this. So I'm going to go with a couple stories here. First story that came out earlier this week was that PlayStation is reviving an extremely popular franchise this year from an insider, according an insider, I believe, on Reddit. Yeah, so they were saying that this is coming to VG News Insider on Twitter, who wrote, PlayStation rumored to announce the return of an extremely popular franchise in Q4 2022, with the game's development rumored to be around 70% complete. Okay. That came out. And then afterwards, we got another leak saying that Infamous and Sly Cooper reportedly in development for PS5. This is according to Industry Insider. I'm going to screw this up. Jeet, I don't know, ACCNGT on Reddit. A sequel to Infamous and Sly Cooper is reportedly in development. While many might not be aware of who the leaker is, it should be noted that they have quite a credible track record. The leaker revealed details about how Star Wars Eclipse several days before the entire reveal took place, and since then, a number of scoops have been correct. That is coming from MD Armugohedin on DualShockers. So, all that being said, those were the rumors that were cooking up all this week. And then Sony today announced State of Play is returning, and they wrote the show is clocking in around 20 minutes, give or take, with special focus on highlighting great games coming from some of our beloved Japanese publishers, though we'll have a few updates from other developers located around the world too. So let's start this one by one. First of all, Infamous and Sly Cooper. Do you think those games are currently in development for the PlayStation 5?
Currently in development? Probably. I don't think those come out of thin air, especially when they've started to be corroborated a little bit by the looks of it. I mean, it would make sense too. Like they could use a couple of extra things to really, like, Infamous would work perfectly with this hardware now. And again, like, I think people, since Spider-Man's really come into its own, obviously Horizon's doing what it's doing, there's kind of a void left that Uncharted hasn't been around for a little while. So, it needs something else. And I mean, like I said, Infamous it works. As a concept, it always works. And it's always like a good contrast to what Spider-Man is, where Spider-Man's a little bit more upbeat and Infamous tends to be a little more of the gritty stuff, tends to be a little bit darker in some aspects too. I mean, granted, Wolverine might be that, in a few years whenever that game comes out, but hey. But like, that makes sense. And then Sly Cooper, honestly, like, Ratchet did so well. We need more games that are kind of directly thrown at kids anyway, and Sly Cooper's a nice balance of that. I mean, Sackboy did that. I don't want to see a third Knack because, as I've seen with Knack games, like, they're not actually that good. So it'd be nice to try something else if you're going to lean more of a kid demographic. Not to say that Sly is a kid's game, but it definitely has that look that would thrive more with that demographic to begin with. And then we play them because they're just really good platformers.
Sly Cooper is, I think, my favorite Sony platform like mascot game.
Out of the three like major ones back in the day, like Ratchet, Jack and Daxter, or Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, and Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper was easily my favorite.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't know about an Infamous game. I definitely think that there's going to be a Sly Cooper game. Like, for me, it just makes more sense. The reason why we're not going to get an Infamous game is that we already kind of have it. The idea being that, like, Insomniac's already busy with another Spider-Man game and another Wolverine game. They're not going to be making that. So who's going to be making it?
I mean, they've got all these other developers. They could pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, they could, but like, why do it? Like, there's already a saturation of superhero games, right? We already have, like, we have Spider-Man, we have Wolverine, we have the Avengers, we have we have Batman. Like, the original reason why Infamous was made was the idea that like we didn't have a lot of superhero games, and so it was better to make a game that was, not like that wasn't tied to a property. But now that those games are starting to get released out there, I mean, do we need it? Do we need an Infamous? And this is coming from someone who loves Infamous. Infamous was great, but I don't see that when we have these licensed properties, they're going to sell a whole lot more than an Infamous game.
Well, I don't think
Uh,
it matters if they do or not. It's like it depends on what you're trying to do with that game. Like if you're trying to do something as like a good middling one, like again, we're not assuming that Infamous is going to be at the level of what Spider-Man is these days, or at the level of like what you'd expect an Uncharted or Last of Us game to be. Infamous could always be like, you could always take that series and be like, look, okay, we know we don't want to overshadow all the other games that we have out there. We could also just turn it into more of a smaller, like middling sort of, $50-$60 experience instead of, going for the full blown. You could hand it off to somebody else and be like, hey, like, let's try some fun ideas. Give this to one of your smaller developers and let them take a run at something different. Like, you can do it in a bunch of different directions and use the Infamous license as a way to kind of get your foot in the door. Because if they start with a new IP, sometimes people get a little bit antsy about it. But if you at least put something that they're at least familiar with, it gives them an idea of what they're at least expecting. So there's always the possibility. I do think that, and I agree with you that Sly Cooper is the most obvious one that would be being made. There is a definite chance that Infamous was just another name throw in there because, yeah, it's probably one of the weirder ones, like you said, because of just the oversaturation of A, open world games, B, superhero games. Not that Infamous is technically a superhero game; it's more of a urban, like,
it's a superpower game. Like,
yeah. It's almost
superhero and everything but superhero.
Yeah, it's almost like playing Saints Row just with, it actually having no comedy and just being like the serious aspects of it.
It literally, like the first game literally had a comic book pages in it.
Yeah. So it's more more like an homage to those.
But like Sly Cooper, I think is definitely gonna happen because like Sanzaru, the last game that they've made, I'm looking here, was I think Asgard's Wrath in 2019, and they had like that was the most recent game that they've made. I don't know what they're working on right now, so like I definitely can see them working on a new Sly Cooper game. And Thieves in Time did really well, and like I think it does lead on a cliffhanger for like another game. So I can see them saying, "Hey, Sanzaru, do you want to go and make another game?"
Like, I mean, we mentioned too, like, there's a whole lot of other games that could be getting brought back. I mean, we've mentioned during the Bungie buy that, Killzone could be a cool thing to bring back because again, the console's been kind of missing with first person shooters. So I mean, if there's new IP being brought back, Killzone might have been an interesting one. You could even go real back and go into SOCOM and things like that. Or what was, I don't even know if this one was a Sony made one, but I'm thinking what was the one that was originally touted as like the big like 100-person battle game? Was it Mag or something?
Massive. What the hell was it? It was Mag. I just forget what Mag stands for.
But I mean, it's just stuff like that where like I think if you were gonna pick two games, Sly Cooper is one that definitely makes sense because it would definitely stand out. And then on top of that, like a shooter would be the best thing. And I know people are probably rolling their eyes, being like, "Great, yeah, that's what we need, another shooter." I'm like, well, we are in the stage right now, guys, where we have way too many open world games. Even though a lot of them are really good, there's also a lot of the open world games. We could probably use a couple of different experiences. I can't believe I'm saying that a shooter would be a different experience, but in Sony first party games, that is a different experience. So, but who knows?
By the way,
like if the two games was Infamous and Sly Cooper, I wouldn't be against it because I play both. Just when I play them is different because again, the backlog. But
yeah, just for record, MAG stands for Massive Action Game. What a dumb name.
Well, back in those times, that was as creative as people got.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they bring back MAG. I can see SOCOM coming back. I can see
people are begging. Like I have seen nothing but SOCOM like begging for like 5 years, and it still isn't. It's same with Siphon Filters, one that I've seen popped around. The people who are just like, please bring it back. Yeah, those two specific. I mean, Killzone again because as we mentioned a while back, like it makes sense because that's going to be a really good way of showing like just how crazy the visuals can be on that console because you can set piece the crap out of that game instead of it being like Horizon is obviously really gorgeous, but at some point it's an open world game which is more dictated by what you do. Whereas a first person shooter, you can force the player to experience a very specific line of a scene, so that way you can really ramp up the visuals because you know exactly where everything's going to go. So it goes both ways. I don't really care what the actual thing is. If it's two old school titles, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to like whatever it is because there's a lot to choose from. Like, it could be Jack and Daxter for all we know. Like, there's a lot of interesting options out there. It's just, which ones?
Yeah, like, I think SOCOM would be a good one. Like, I feel like the thing with Killzone and things like Infamous is that they're still, like, they're barely dormant, right? Like, they both had iterations, granted, in the early parts of the PlayStation's life cycle, but
what about, say, Resistance then?
Resistance would be a good one. Yep. I was thinking also things like, doing another Metal Gear, like doing that remastered Metal Gear that we had talked about. Armored Core being another one. So, like, I don't know. I think there's some, like, more dormant games that could come back that, would resonate a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this comes back. So talking about these games, state of play, what do you think that we're going to see there? Do you think we're going to see any of these games announced? Like, do we think we're going to see this revival title? And what do you think it's going to be? What are your predictions? Give me 3 predictions for state of play.
I'll give you 3 predictions. 1, Spartacus won't be there. 2, nothing major in terms of these new IPs are going to be there. And 3, people on the internet are going to rage about it like they do every single time on a state of play.
Damn it, those are like the lamest like predictions ever. You're just basically taking cop-outs of what's not going to be there.
I know.
What is going to be
but
there?
What am I actually going to say that's going to come true?
So for me, like I think one thing
okay, if you want me to be serious, I want to see Hogwarts Legacy because I want to see some freaking gameplay of this thing because it's been in hell forever. I want to see Final Fantasy 16, and then after that, I'm trying to think of Japanese properties that I want to see, but I mean, I don't really know what Sony's directly involved with when it comes to Japanese stuff, so...
Now, it doesn't. Here's what they say. They say, with a special focus highlighting great games coming from some of our beloved Japanese publishers.
Yeah. So my brain's thinking like maybe Street Fighter could be there, right?
Yeah, I think Street Fighter's going to be there. I think we're going to see Ghostwire Tokyo. What else do you think we're like? And I think we're going to see.
Personally, they probably. This is my honest, like, almost for sure thing bet. It's already been revealed for Switch. I figure there's going to be a small trailer somewhere about the Chrono Cross remaster at this point just to reinforce it that it's going to be on PlayStation. It would make sense. I figure that's almost a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think we're going to get a God of War trailer.
I'm still on the fence about that one.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, the game is supposed to theoretically come out this year, right?
Yeah, but we also know, like, Sony's usually pretty upfront when something big's coming. Because this isn't like an E3 thing. They're usually pretty upfront. Not to mention, they blog post way more when it comes to major stuff than anything else. So, like, I figured we would have seen a blog post about a God of War trailer coming soon.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a full deep dive into God of War.
But I also don't even think it's going to be a trailer because Sony doesn't, like, I don't know. Does Sony really ever surprise on these state of plays? Like, apart from the PlayStation Experience one, I don't know if there's so much, like, surprising. That's why my brain's like kind of averse to thinking God of War will be there because I don't see them popping that because it just seems like not the thing they've done, especially in only a 20-minute video, which is kind of capping what they can do. Because like if you show 10 seconds of God of War at like the end of it where it's just a quick like another freeze frame, like no one's, I mean, sure, people will be happy for a moment, then they'll realize, no, we want to see the goddamn gameplay again. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be a full.
I don't think it's gonna be a deep dive. I think we get a release date. I mean, if you think about it, the hopper's pretty empty in terms of what's coming for this year. The only big thing that we have is really God of War, and so like we don't know when that's coming out. So I can see that getting dropped. Especially, I'm of the mind that's gonna drop this summer. So I could see them being like, oh, by the way, God of War's coming. July, whatever. Look forward to that.
Well, the reason my thinking is like that is because, again, the second they're way too damn honest with those state of plays. And I know why. It's because they're always boring and don't actually do much, so people get mad every time. So they started being like, all right, we might as well just tell you what's going to be here because you guys are going to bitch and complain if we don't give you a heads up. And then they bitch and complain anyway. But
we're in a tight spot where we have to tell you that's going to be this, so you don't get your hopes up. But we also can't tell you it's shit so that you get disappointed that there's nothing there.
Like there was one specific state of play where they said this is all about showcasing our indie developers. And people were like, so God of War's going to be there, right?
I think I was one of those people.
So that's what I mean. It's like, it's gotten to the point where people are so unreasonable with these streams that like they've had to do this. Now, should they be doing a state of play after this much inactivity if they have nothing to show? Probably not. But Sony, like we've had the conversation before what State of Play should be, and Sony's like, nope, we're just gonna keep doing this format that makes everybody angry every time. I just don't see with 20 minutes that they're gonna throw in God of War because there's not enough time with everything. Because it's not gonna be like they show 3 games and then God of War. It's gonna be like 10 different titles, and you can't do like every trailer is gonna be between 30 seconds to a minute. You got to take into account all the freaking dialogue that goes in between them because they got to go freeze frame. And now here comes this next thing from our following developer. And at some point, there's going to be an interview with one of the developers where they talk nonsense about a game that you don't care about. So, like, I just don't see how if... Now, by 20 minutes, could they mean 25? I don't know, but I'm taking 20 kind of literally here. I've seen enough State of Plays to go, I know how these run. I don't know how you fit in God of War into this if it's 20 minutes, given what you probably are already throwing in there.
Do you think there's a chance that we're going to see Final Fantasy 16 here? Because there is a rumor going around that this is supposed to theoretically have a June 2022 release date.
That would make sense as well. I mean, again, if you're talking about, your big Japanese developers, I mean, that's kind of the one. Now, if it's true that June this year is when they're hoping, or sorry, did you say June this year or June a different year?
Yeah, so I'm just reading just an article online and givemesport.com. They're talking that fans have taken. So they wrote here. Although there's not been an official date confirmed for Final Fantasy 16, rumors have been circulating regarding a release of June 2022. PlayStation Showcase event intro video had a sign that read Valithia 0616. The actual intro video is set in a type of subway, including times for potential stops. Fans have taken this to mean that Final Fantasy 16 will be releasing on the 16th of June 2022, as Valithia is the setting for the new Final Fantasy title.
Knowing Square, I would be shocked if that's true, because 3 months out and we haven't seen a single lick of gameplay.
It's from Jake Scudder, by the way.
What?
No, I was just giving the author of the article.
Oh,
just giving those dues.
Yeah, no, I won't put any credence to that rumor. I'd be shocked if that game is even if it's coming out this year, I'd be shocked. But June,
But I mean, could we be looking at a fall release, and maybe this is the start of that?
If it was a fall release or like a November release, then yeah, I could see it. But if the rumor date was June, I'm like, no. They usually have way more marketing when stuff's coming out that soon. Because if there's anything that I've learned from Square Enix games is that they over-advertise their games to hide the fact that they rushed it out the door. Cough, cough, 15. Cough, cough.
Yeah. So what, I guess, yeah, like Square Enix could be there. I think Street Fighter's going to be there. I think that's probably another safe bet. And then probably a couple smaller games as well. Ghostwire Tokyo will probably be there.
Hey, Sony, buy Falcom, so that way we can announce the new Trails game for me, please.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited, but we'll see what's coming up there. Things that you're hopefully not excited for is Forspoken, because that just got delayed. So Forspoken released a message on Twitter saying, "We've made the decision to move the release date of Forspoken to October 11th, 2022. Our vision for this exciting new IP is to deliver a game world and hero that gamers across the globe will want to experience for years to come. So getting it right is extremely important to us. To that end, during the next few months, we will focus all of our efforts on polishing the game and can't wait for you to experience Frey's journey this fall. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. We look forward to sharing more about Forspoken with you soon." Adam, what do you think of moving the game to October 11th? Good move, bad move?
I mean, here's the thing, right? How many people are actually that excited for this game? Because I don't see any talk online about it. All the game threads that I go through, you don't hear about it much. I'm really, really worried that this is going to be a game that comes out to indifference. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they're delaying it because at least it puts it back in the news. They know they can polish it. I'm sure it's also typical Square Enix fodder where they rush a game out too soon and they realize, oh crap, it's still way too buggy. Because we were really bad at building open world games and we're trying to fix it. I don't know, like, This game has always been a very rough one to get behind because essentially came out of an engine that they showcased like 10 years ago. And when they came out with like the initial trailer for Forspoken, we're like, oh, it's a game. That's interesting. And then we saw what the game was looking like and we're like, oh, this looks like a game that's all of graphics, no substance. And nothing that the trailers have done have changed my decision on that. I really do feel like this game is the typical Square ideology, which is we make it really fucking pretty, and then that's all we do. We just try to put a game around a graphics engine. Like, need I remind people the history that they started since Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, their first movie, where it was supposed to be the prettiest CG movie ever, and it was the most dull, horribly written piece of crap I think I've ever seen in my life. And then
Whoa. It wasn't that bad.
It was pretty bad.
No,
it was pretty bad.
Dude, it was like, they had some pretty cool character art in there.
Advent Children was just as bad, but we forgive it because it's 7. And I say that as a Final Fantasy fan. It's not bad if you just take it for fan service, but if you actually sit there and like critically rate it, it's bad.
So I watched it and I had I was not a Final Fantasy person, but like, did that have any relation to any of the games, or was that just a sticker on it?
Nope, that was a label. Every Final Fantasy fan went into the theater and watched Spira Within and went, what the fuck does this have to do with Final Fantasy?
I like the movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in like years. I was like a teenager.
Well, we saw it, and the first thing we thought we saw was guns, and we went, well, this has nothing to do with Final Fantasy VIII. What the fuck is this? Because, like, apart from, like, a couple enemies in 7, and I guess technically Barrett, but that's not really a gun, like, the only person that's ever held a gun as a playable party character has been in 8 up until that point, so we're all like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, like, this space apparition thing where people's souls were getting sucked out, like it was Shang Tsung coming into thing. It was weird. I've tried to repress most of that.
I liked it.
And then 7 happened, and that was fine, but it still sucked. And then Kingsglaive happened, and that was horrible. Even the anime couldn't save it.
I've only seen the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie.
Square just. I'm sorry, but I should say I used to love. Square is still in a very tumultuous place with me. Square has a history of like making
Adam's
pretty
Facebook relationship with Square Enix it's complicated.
Oh no. Square's been banned off my Facebook for a while. I just look at the odd picture of Square and be like, I remember the good times. But no, like Square's had a history of like making games that are really freaking pretty in trailers, and then when you play that, you go, wow, they put no work into the story. Oh wow, the characters are all boring as shit. Oh wow, the gameplay feels like something that was made 15 years ago. Right. And with Forspoken, I'm getting the same vibes that I did back in the day with 15. And I can't believe I'm saying back in the day, but that's like 5 or 6 years now. That's how long it's actually been. Square, I don't know what it is. 9 times out of 10, their games get rushed out the door now, and I don't know why. And I'm afraid that because they're delaying it, it's because it's that far behind. And I have a bad feeling because the Luminous engine has been around forever. It's been out for a long time. And my brain wonders, how long have they been working on a sort of game with that engine? B, how long was Forspoken that game? And C, how much actual production time have they spent on that game? Because fans of 15 will remember that 15 technically was worked on for 10 games or 10 years before release. But the actual 15 that we got was only worked on for 2 because they kept changing. Because people would leave, different production people would take over, then we had a new director, and they keep scrapping it. Originally, 15 was supposed to be like an offshoot of 13. I don't know how they're going to shoehorn that in back in the day, but that was what it was supposed to be. I think it was called Versus 13 for a while. And then it became 15 eventually, and we're all like, oh, wow, that's okay. They turned what was supposed to be like a side game into a full game. That'll be a thing. And then we saw the trailers, and most of us kind of went, oh, this is bad. This isn't good. And sure enough, it was fun until you got to a certain point, but it ended up being pretty bad because they rushed the writing because there was no real script because they had to throw one together in 2 years. Whereas, the good games that we know and love, they actually work on the entire game for more than 2, usually 5, and they end up looking really good. You know, probably like Horizon. I don't know, like I just get vibes from Forspoken that I already had bad vibes to begin with, and now that it's getting delayed, I'm going great. They probably rushed it, and now it's in a really bad state, so they're trying to fix as much as they can. I would be surprised if it ends up being a really good game, kind of similar to what I felt with Deathloop. If it ends up being like a really really good game, I'll be shocked, but I'll be happy because I want it to be a good game. But I'm going in not expecting much.
See, for me, I have the idea that Forspoken is, I think putting it in that October timeframe is one of two ways: either a terrible idea or a great idea, because it's one of those situations where October's a very like typically that time period is really packed for blockbuster games. Like that's when the big heavy hitters come out. We don't know a lot what's coming out in fall yet, but that's typically an area you want to come in with your best shot. So I don't see Forspoken being a large AAA thing that's going to like ignite the world. I definitely hope it does. Like I want games to be good, and I'm kind of excited. And I want to see what happens with Forspoken. I'm interested. I'm intrigued by it, but I don't say I'm dying at the bit to play it. I didn't even know it was coming out next month. But I think having it come out in October is very risky. Where I think it might pay off is this might be a situation where, like, it might be a similar case of Guardians of the Galaxy sort of thing. You know, release it in October. And I mean, I know people love Guardians of the Galaxy, but let's be honest, it's an average game. It's a double A game. It's not, pinnacle. The writing's good. It's really an awesome game, but it's not something that competes with, large AAA, games. And I think having it come in October, do that Black Friday discount, like that's a game that's going to drop to $30 by Black Friday, guaranteed. And that might be what they're trying to do, is just get it so that they can just drop that price without making it look like it's a bad game, and then have that residual sales coming in afterwards, which I imagine Guardians of the Galaxy did as well. So I don't know. I think it might be a risky move, like unless they're trying to get it to like have a reason to justify dropping the price down to $30, do it a Black Friday deal, and let that get the word of mouth out.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm because the gameplay trailer is up on the screen right now for those watching the video portion of it. Which, by the way, YouTube, search up Pixel Play Podcast on YouTube, you can see us there. I forgot what the gameplay looked like, and it looks literally like 15 to me, and that makes me worried because again, 15's gameplay is like Kingdom Hearts without actually being polished, and that's a problem. So, again, as I'm looking at the trailer, it looks pretty. But again, I'm not seeing the substance to it. It just seems like, a mishmash of just a lot of particle effects on screen. And you just see a lot of people get hit with stuff. Like, I don't know if this is going to be something worthwhile. Now, again, could be shocked because I also was the one that said on the show I didn't think Deathloop was going to be any good. And it turned out to be a Game of the Year nominee. So
Pixel Play Podcast Game of the Year.
Yeah, what the fuck do I know, right? So... it's very possible.
Hey, I was crapping on it too. I was like, "What the hell is this game?" And I loved it.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be the similar situation where Forspoken ends up being like one of the best told stories that we see all year. That's very possible. The evidence in front of me shows me, no, this is probably going to be your typical Square game where it's very pretty and doesn't have a lot else to it.
Yeah. Speaking of stories, let's switch over to the last one. Story coming out of Total Film or GamesRadar.com. This is by Lauren Malisi. They write, a live-action adaptation of PlayStation's God of War franchise is headed to television. According to Deadline, Amazon Prime Video is in negotiations for a new series based on the popular action-adventure games. The project is helmed by Mark Fergus and Hawk Otsby, creators and executive producers of sci-fi series The Expanse, great show, and Raf Judkins, executive producer and showrunner of Prime Video's epic fantasy The Wheel of Time, as well as Sony Pictures Television and PlayStation Productions. Sony is likely to co-executive produce alongside Amazon Studios. A couple questions for you, Adam. One, how do you feel about a God of War movie, game, show coming out? Two, who would you want to see play Kratos? And then three, let's save that one. We'll circle back to that. But first, how do you feel about a God of War movie, and who do you want to see play Kratos?
The fact that it's live action is my problem. This is not a live action show. Honestly, God of War is an animated series if you're going to make anything out of it. The fact that they're trying to live action it does the same thing that I have a problem with when it comes to, say, what Disney does with a lot of their movies. There are just certain things that I don't think translate well if you're going to put real actors on a real set. Obviously, there'd be some CG in this show, but like I don't see it with this one. And believe me, I want to think it's good because the showrunners apparently for the show are going to be the Expanse showrunners. But then I also heard that the executive producer of The Wheel of Time, which a lot of people don't seem to like very much, and I'm glad that they've told me not to watch it because I was really interested in that initially. So it's been a bit of both. Like, people are really psyched that like you got some good guys from The Expanse running it, but then also the guy from Wheel of Time has a big voice in it, which is not good. So this is a weird mishmash already. And then on top of that, again, I don't think the subject matter for God of War works. I don't think that the kind of stories that it tells, the kind of setting that it works with, the kind of, honestly, violence that show prescribes works in a live action format. You can do it, but I don't know if it makes any sense to do it when animated could just do it so much better, especially when the voice acting can make it so much better too. You know,
Yeah.
And the thing is too, is like you can spend less money on getting all the set building done and all these things. Just have an animation team cover it. You can probably get some good voices, or better yet, get the actual fucking voice of Kratos in there. And now you really don't have to do that much work. You know, you've already got the voice perfectly encapsulated. You don't have to think about signing it. But I know what the reality is Amazon throws you a bunch of money. You want to get your name into everything. So you're like, okay, let's do a live action show. We'll probably find some really famous person like The Rock to do Kratos just to get some buzz on it. And then it's going to be meh. Like that's my worry going in. But I mean, look, I'm all about shocking. I'm all about doing like things that actually would be interesting. I watched The Batman on the weekend, and who knew that Robert Pattinson would be my favorite Batman right now? Sometimes putting people that you don't expect it in it makes sense. So you know what? I'll give you my idea for Kratos. There is no way you would have guessed this name, by the way, even though you have watched him personally and love him. What do you think about Wes Chatham as Kratos? From The Expanse, for those, Amos from The Expanse, for those that are wondering.
Ooh, that's a good. That's a decent option.
Because you're getting somebody
yeah.
that, again, doesn't carry that name recognition right away. So it's the same thing. Like, a lot of people, when you think about the Marvel movies, how many characters have been casted where, like, you don't actually, like, you might know the name, but you're not, like, attaching 5 other movies to that person's role. So, like, having a name that Wes Chatham, like, those that are at least Prime users will know exactly who he is because they all watch The Expanse because people like good content. And again, like, he's got to bulk up a little bit extra for it, and obviously shave that fucking glorious hair that he's got, but he's already got the beard down pat, and he's good at doing violent characters. Him as Kratos could be a very interesting pick.
See, I can see him playing as Baldur.
That would also work too.
See,
I just want Wes to get some top tier roles. I want to see that man thrive. I want to see that entire cast get some big roles. I want to see. I mean, I was happy to see the actor for Anderson Dawes in The Expanse getting a role in Morbius, but like that's the best that we've gotten. I haven't seen any. I don't think Stephen Straight's gotten any big roles or Dominique Tipper's gotten anything. I don't think any of them have gotten really much. I mean, Alex Kamal, for reasons that I'm not going to say on the show, is not going to be getting those roles anymore. But you know, like any of the major cast from The Expanse, they haven't gotten to do anything cool. So man, I want to throw Wes a bone. He's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think he would do. I would put him as Baller for me, and this is like a cop out, but like I feel like Jason Momoa could do God of War.
So you're doing the typical thing, which is throw the big name in there to get people's eyes in.
100%. He's not doing anything, but like I can just see
Jason
him, like,
Momoa is not doing anything these days. Not being in like everything now.
I'm pretty sure he's actually starving for work. He'd probably do it for pennies on the dollar, I think.
Really? Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they've already wrapped up the second Aquaman movie as far as I know. So
he's coming out of Dune. He was in it for like a total of like 20 minutes. He's not really involved. Like he's starving for work. Get him on the phone.
I mean, a lot of people were saying Dave Bautista, but like people need to remember that he's in his 50s, and I think he's even personally said he doesn't want to do Drax anymore because he can't keep up and staying in shape for that role. And Kratos is not far off from Drax, so it's probably not the best idea if that's his goal, just, you know, to take a fucking break.
Like, I don't see Dave Bautista having like the God of War face. Like Jason Momoa has that like long elongated face. You throw a beard on it. I could see him doing it.
I know, but a lot of people just saw Drax and put a beard on him and thought, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
I mean, technically, he uses blades similar to Kratos anyway, so he's kind of got the posing in there.
That's acting. That's acting. Technically, Jason Momoa had blades in Dune. Like, they both can do it.
Look. We're going to semantics here now, but yeah, like, if we have to do a God of War live action series, don't do what everybody does with these shows and put major actors in there to try to get attention. Put people that are actually going to really try with these roles. I'm not saying Jason Momoa wouldn't try, but we're going to throw odds now that if you're already doing major roles and you're making way too much money already as an actor, are you really going to try for some Amazon Prime series? Especially when it's based off of a video game. Look, I'm trying not to say that, our medium doesn't matter to most folks, but like our medium doesn't matter to most folks. Because, from what I've heard about Uncharted, it's not great.
But that thing did I think it did $200 million.
Oh, it did well, but if anybody that actually watched the movie went, it's fine, I guess.
Good dollars or bad dollars are still dollars. It doesn't
I know,
really matter.
but I'm still the critical person.
But anyway, like what I guess I'm thinking with this is that like I have no problem with doing this. I just don't know if God of War is the story to make a movie out of.
No.
Because no offense, like I love God of War. Probably like one of my favorite games I've played of all time. Like especially like 'cause that came out. Like I played that just after I found out I was gonna be a dad to a young son. That was my jam. I was all about it. But like it's not a fantastic game in terms of like carrying a story. Like it has a great story, and I'm gonna use this with an asterisk. Don't come at me. For a video game, like it is a game that like the story on its own does not carry. A lot of that game is also done by the amazing combat and the gameplay in that game. The stories are also just side little stories of going for a canoe ride with Mimir. It's also knowing the history of God of War, but like from a story perspective, it's not the greatest game that translates from a story perspective. I don't know if it has enough to carry a full series. Maybe a movie, but once again, I don't know how much it's going to resonate with people, especially because you don't see that character. I mean, they could work it in, but like it means a little bit more to us because we've seen the other like God of War games, like the original trilogy and how it came up. I don't acknowledge the Ascension, but you see those like 3 games and then you see what his character becomes, and that has more significance. And I don't know if that translates into a story. Like there is an aspect of having a video game that I have agency, that I am doing things that don't require us to have it as an engaging of a story, right? In a movie, all you have really is a story to engage the audience. Video games, you can substitute that. You can adjust in the sense that I don't have to have a great story because the combat is going to engage my players a little bit, right? And I don't know if God of War has a story enough that if you got rid of the combat, and like you said, we're not going to be able to do it as gory and gruesome as long as God of War, like the God of War 4 kind of did. So for me, I just don't know. Talking about casting choices, I want to hear your audition for it. Let me hear your best Kratos God of War impression. Do the boy.
Boy.
Oh, all right. I'll throw my audition. Boy.
Yeah, you can do it way better than me.
I also got the beard, so Amazon.
Yeah, you do have an unfair advantage. The beard helps the voice.
The beard drops it by an octave.
Oh, exactly. So. But yeah, like the story, it's like if you actually sit down and think of and we're using God of War, like the current one that we've played recently, not the older games from like PS2 era. You take that story from the reboot. There's so much filler that like you're gonna have to write like 70% of the story in a TV series because you're basically like you can't just go from one mission to the next. There has to be like all this extra time that's normally just the canoe trips and the walking. So you'll have to find something else because it can't just be okay, they go to this realm, okay, now they go to this realm, okay, now they go to this realm. Like at some point there's got to be some exposition in there, which means you got to make a bunch of shit up. And I don't know, like, what are you gonna do? He's gonna save a person from a really nasty soldier captain guy who's really mean. Like, what are they gonna do? You can't do that much with this without it being like just copy and pasting it. I don't know, it just doesn't work. There's so many, even Sony first party projects alone, there's so many better things you could be doing TV series of, and you pick God of War. It's like We get it. You're just taking the most successful titles and starting with those. We get it. Like, you're doing what DC does. Stop.
So that being said, you said there were better options. What would be, one or two games that you'd like that you think would translate better or that you would want to see done as a movie?
I mean, if you want to go big, if anybody can tell me Mass Effect would not be the greatest sci-fi TV series out there, because you can go in both directions. You can go in the alien invasion angle for Mass Effect, or you can go the Andromeda angle that they fucked up horribly on, which is new galaxy, exploring new worlds, and trying to colonize human people in a completely different galaxy we never belonged to. You can do so much with that. That's Star Trek shit. You can do that easily. That's you don't have to try even that hard to write stuff. All you gotta do is get people that are really good at costume making, and you're pretty much fucking down pat for that. That's like the immediate one that always stands out to me. And then beyond that, if I actually sit down and think about it, I'm assuming we're talking live action, because animated you could just come up with a million things, because here's the thing, so much more would work with animated because now you can dictate where everything goes. And again, voice acting can be done so much better for animated than it is in live action, because it's so much harder to get people to pose perfectly. When in animated, you can set them exactly how you want, and all you got to do is worry about the tone and the voice. And also, you have full freedom of like content too, like we said with God of War, where it's pretty violent. Well, you can be pretty goddamn violent and animated without having to worry about overclocking your blood budget.
Yeah, but also too, as you get like in that realistic thing, people get tired of seeing like that gore fest of, like you can only rip someone in half so many times before people get like tired or squeamish of it, right? Yeah. For me, I think the ones that I would kind of lean on, I'd say like I think Last of Us is going to translate really well into a TV show, and I'm excited for.
Yeah, that one made perfect sense.
That one made perfect sense. For me, the one I think would work is Fallout, and what I would do with Fallout is I would make a Fallout show, but I would make different like stories. So like each season would be a different Fallout story.
Almost like
Fallout
a different vault.
Like different vault. Like I make new stories in the world of Fallout. And I think that this is something that would work really well for a lot of open RPG kind of games. Like you could even do this with like Skyrim, for example. You could do this with Mass Effect, but I think Fallout would work really well. Each season you do kind of like the Fargo route, where it's like each season is a new story, new survivor, new city, like, and a different story, and just people trying to survive. And you just have those the iconography of Fallout in the sense of, you have the Nuka-Cola, you have Vault Tech, you have ghouls, you have zombies, and like different scenarios and different stories. And that's kind of how I think would translate really well. You don't need to take a video game story and turn it into a movie, but take a video game world or a video game idea and make something new with it. If we were going to go the route of making something like carbon copy of it, one of the ones that stands out to me is like, I think Ghost of Tsushima will work as a actual movie or TV show. I think my first choice would be to take a video game world and make new stories in that world with new characters. Because I think I can't remember what it was, but there was a YouTube channel that used to make like they were making a Fallout YouTube show, and it was like some like postal delivery guy, and it was his own little story and its own little world. I think it was New Vegas that they were doing, but he was just doing his own little story, and like I liked it. I thought it was really good, and I think that's really what I would be advising to producers and showrunners to do, is just take the world and make something your own. Adam, I think that's about going to do it for us for this week. Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoy doing this for you guys. If this is your first time listening to us, thank you. Hit that like and subscribe. We're trying to get up to 100 listeners, and we're getting there. So if you are listening to us on the podcast, send us a subscribe on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe. And as always, let your friends and family know about this podcast. It really helps us out. We really think your grandma would like it, so send it over to her. She's lonely. She's got no one to talk to. I'm sure she'd love to hear our sweet, sultry voices when she's alone. Or, just send it over to her. She'll love it. She likes to hear about God of War and ripping people apart, and is really good at trophy stumpers. It really, makes her day. So send a request and send it over to her and say, hey, check this out. I think you'll like it. Or anyone else you think that might like this show. As always, I am your host, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.